So, hello, Maxine. Lovely to meet
Hi,
you.
Louise.
I wanted to start by asking what spurred you to write this book, What Women Want?
Hmm. I guess it felt like the right time. And in a way, I think the book has been writing itself for the last 15, 20 years, which is the time that I've been in practice, training for 5, and then working clinically for the last 15 years. And this question that actually Freud posed originally of what do women want? And his claim that he was no closer to understanding, even though his research for the 30 years was no closer to understanding what women wanted. So I found that kind of interesting. My experience was something very different, which was that it was very clear what women wanted. It was just the struggle of how one was going to get it. And so I thought I would revisit Freud's question and look at modern psychotherapy to see what had changed, different processes of working. I work in a more relational, attachment-based way. And I was just curious to kind of open up this question again and really think about it from a modern perspective, from modern women.
What do you make of the comparisons to Lisa Taddeo's Three Women, which was retelling the sexual lives of three individual American women?
I can understand the comparison. I think when a book comes out, media likes to have comparisons, and people don't always like to have something that they can't recognize in another book potentially. And I think, Lisa's book is a fabulous book. I think the similarities are that we are both women writing with and for other women, advocating for other women. Lisa, of course, is a wonderful journalist. I'm a psychotherapist, so we're coming at it from different angles. But I think if more women were writing with and for women, from whatever professional stance, that's wonderful. So there's certainly worse people to be compared to, and I think it was a great book.
Do you feel that the changes in how people have relationships in the past 20 years, things like dating apps, non-monogamy, issues of consent, discussion of issues of consent, have benefited women?
I don't think there's a either or answer to that. I think it may have potentially benefited some women and potentially hasn't benefited other women, and then everything in between. I think what we're really talking about is a desire for connection. And because we're now living in a culture where everything is so instant, the kind of instant gratification on social medias. But I think these apps have really shown us that people do want to connect. Of course, consent, comes at the top of my list in terms of women and keeping, themselves safe. If I even talk to friends or clients, I would say that if you are going on a date with these apps, do let someone else know where you are. Keep yourself safe. There is, of course, that. But I think relationships have changed generally, not just because of the apps. I think languages change in relationships. We just think about our children. I'm thinking about my son, who's 18 now, and the way that he communicates with his friends. It's almost like they're creating a new language. Linguistically, something is changing. So I wouldn't say it's either or. I think it's very complex, and but what I do feel is that we are all trying to reach one another in some way, and sometimes that works out, and sometimes it doesn't. And so it's certainly changed, though. I can certainly think I'm going to be 50 this year, and when I think about when I was dating in my 30s, it's certainly very different to what it feels like now. Yeah.
What would your answer be to that question of Freud? What do women want?
Well, my take on it was with the actual book itself, it's what women want with no question point. So I wanted to ditch the question point. Let's start from there. Yeah. Women want, period. When I'm talking to my clients in practice, it's not the question. We all know that women want. So my desire is that we start from that place. Women want, period. And then we can unravel and unpack why that desire is A, difficult to ignite, difficult to claim, difficult to live up to. There's sometimes a lot of shame and judgment and fear around desire. So I wouldn't say that there's a hard and fast answer to what women want. Of course, we all want to be loved. We all want to feel creative. We want to make meaningful relationships and have, be happy in our work, feel safe, feel loved. But I think let's just start with women want, and then we can begin the conversations.
So the implication being that women still don't really own up to wanting as much as men do.
Well, I think in my experience in practice, my experience is that there is still a lot of shame around want and desire, and a lot of fear around it. Now, that can be very dependent on what those ghosts in the nursery have been in terms of emotional inheritance, or what has made that desiring very difficult or painful or frightening. I talk about that in the beginning of What Women Want, my own oppression that I experienced in terms of my own desire. I was given two very strong messages, which was I was raised by my mother, who's white working class, and then my father, who was Chinese and patriarchal. So it was quite a cocktail of oppression. So the messages that I received was, I want does not get, and you are too sensitive to live. So it was very difficult to feel my desire because these messages were very strong. And until I went into my own analysis and unpacked these messages, it's very difficult to claim one's desire when, these kind of historic voices or messages are spoken to us,
Do you think women experience therapy differently from men?
That's a good question. This would be a really good time for men to kind of come in on the conversation. We would really want to draw them in and talk with us, wouldn't we, about this? Because I think the latest statistics are that there's still 75 to 80% of women who are therapists, but also a very equivalent number around the 72 to 75% of clients are still women. Let's not also forget non-binary. Don't want to forget non-binary or people that don't identify as male or female. But in my practice, when men come to see me for therapy, they've usually been suggested to by a partner, a sister, a mother. Maybe you could go to therapy. Maybe this would be helpful. Whereas I feel that women are coming to therapy with their own agency slightly more. So that's my experience. Now, I think, again, everybody would have their own different, unique essence and experience of psychotherapy. But I think the way that women find therapy is very different to the way that men do. That's not to say that some men have agency, of course, and find the therapy. But I think there is still a lot of stigma for men to come to therapy. And I wish this would be talked about a lot more, the expectation that that men bottle it up and don't talk about their feelings. It's such an archaic taboo, it's so not helpful. But certainly they're finding it differently. They're finding therapists differently. And also that shows in terms of the therapists that are training as well.
Yeah, I'm interested by that because we, in fact, would have said on Welldoing, we would have said those figures were about right in the beginning. But I would say now it's more like 60-40. We have a lot of men looking for therapists. And I like to think that that's, a positive step.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I suppose finally I'd like to say, what do you hope women reading the book will take from it? What is your kind of aim for the reader?
It's a call to arms for women to desire their way. So not a way that they feel they should, those tyrannous shoulds and musts or messages from the ghosts in the nursery. They claim their desire their way. And what hopefully I'm hoping that they'll experience in the book is that by connecting through conversation in an empowered way, they can start to really think about their desire. So that's the message, really. It's a call to arms for desire, and that desire is an action.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Maxine. Terrific.
Thank
Good
you,
luck with the
Louise.
book. I hope it sells.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.